So hello and welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zenker. And on this show, we bring in the best experts and really try to provide you with the tips and tricks that are going to make a difference for you to take back time. And today we have an amazing guest because he's the guru in this space. So if you want to listen to anyone, you want to listen to David Allen. And he is a productivity consultant with three or probably more than three best-selling books on the market. He's considered one of the leading experts on organizational and personal productivity. And he's best known for the highly popular Getting Things Done, or as all the people out there call it, GTD. That's a time management method, and he has a book of the same name, and excited to report that there is a teen version that's coming out in the near future, and we'll get some information about that. And, David Allen is also ranked among the top 5 executive coaches in the world. That does not come easy. That comes from a lot of experience. So, David, thank you for being here.
Delighted to be here, Penny. Thanks for the invitation.
As we were talking about, just before we started the show, you were talking about that you're living in Europe and you're loving it with your new adventurous lifestyle.
Well, we kind of don't want to get stale. My wife, Catherine, and we don't have kids, and we sort of wanted to, several years ago had thought, it'd probably be really nice to get outside the U.S. And we saw people slightly older than us that were looking a little more sedentary than we felt comfortable being. So we said, come on, let's throw a dart and let's sort of make it happen. So we had no idea how long we were going to stay or where we were going to pick. So it was really throw a dart. And my work is now pretty global. So
absolutely,
believe me, Amsterdam is much more the center of the world than Santa Barbara was. So
that's great.
Anyway, we love it. And we fell in love with the city, and we're still here. So we've been here 4 years.
Fantastic. 4 years. Fantastic. So, one of the things that I am curious about is, what brought you, I don't know your whole backstory in the context of why you're so passionate about productivity. Like, what was the moment where you said, what, this is what I want to dedicate my life to?
Well, I think passion is highly overrated. Frankly, whatever you're passionate about, you'll crash and burn with depression about an equal amount sometime soon. So I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm not a get up, let's go do. I'm just
no high fives for you, right?
No. But if you wanted to say what most interests me and most attracts me, it's clear space.
Mm.
I'm a freedom kind of guy. And so having nothing on my mind, or having only on my mind what I want on my mind, with no distraction, no pull, no worry, none of that kind of internal stress about any of that, has been, highly important to me. And so, I embarked many, many years ago, 40 plus 50 years ago, in my own self-development journey, how to stay clear. Various different kind of spiritual practices, martial arts, and all kinds of various kind of personal growth stuff that I got involved in terms of self-development, trainings and intensive, grow yourself kind of things. So I've been involved in that for many, 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 many years, and then discovered that, well, as long as you're on the planet, you can't quite check out from it. I mean, there's a part of me for many years that I just wanted a rice bowl and cave. Like, come on, I don't want this world. I'm much more interested in the inner world and the exploration of that. And, but they weren't paying people to do that. But rice bowl and cave was not quite my style. I like good looking women and Chardonnay and, some of my cooler things in life to enjoy that. So I said, is there some way to still have that kind of life and be involved in this kind of life? As I started my consulting practice back in the early 1980s, and then thinking, okay, how can I stay clear? Because as my life became more professional and more complex, I discovered how easy that was to screw up the clear space. Yeah, if you're on a retreat, and all you do is you can't talk for 10 days, and those are some of the easy ways to start to uncover and explore, some of the inner worlds or outer worlds that you might want to explore.
And the real challenge is when you leave that space, right?
Yeah, you walk back into the tsunami, of the day-to-day fire hose of life is in your face. And so how do you somehow maintain the clarity of space, or know how to get to that clarity quick in case something out here in this material world disturbs you.
Absolutely. And we're all disturbed, trust me. The statistics are alarming how disturbed people are in terms of emotionally drained and constantly distracted. Before we go there, I just want to get out, for a number of years, I had a different show called Take Charge of Your Productivity. And I did ask every guest one key question. And I want to ask you that here. And I think I know what your answer is based on what you just said. But to simplify it, what is your definition of productivity?
Achieving desired results.
Okay. I was surprised it doesn't have any bit of freedom or clarity in there.
No, it's achieving. If you've got a desired result you want and you're not engaged in it appropriately, you're not free.
It's inherent.
It owns you.
Right.
You're not in the driver's seat. So if you go to a party to boogie and you don't boogie, that's an unproductive party. Right?
That is absolutely true.
Most people, their vacation takes them half their vacation to rest from the last 48 hours before they leave. Right. So if you go on a vacation to relax and you're not relaxed, you're not appropriately engaged with your commitment about relaxation or changing your environment so you can have a different perspective on life, which, to me would be a desired outcome if I wanted to. Life is a vacation, so I don't take vacations. I just change environments.
I love that. Wow, I'm definitely going to quote that. That's going to be a quote in here. As I feel,
if you're present, and the big key about getting things done, it's a big secret. So I'll just let you know. So just don't tell anybody this.
I won't tell anybody.
Yeah, getting things done is not so much about getting things done. It's more about how do I appropriately engage with all the levels of commitments in my life that I have, so that I feel comfortable about what I'm doing. So I'm present with what I'm doing, so that there's no distraction. That's the best place to hit a golf ball from, fire somebody from, cook spaghetti from, tuck your kids into bed from at night, is when nothing's on your mind except that. So being present with whatever your experience is, you actually don't even have to like your life to be present. So again, I'm not a motivational speaker.
It would be a nice thing, though.
Well, the truth is that once you're present, you will. Because
you
are a creative, dynamic, being. And so as you start to clear the space inside your psyche of these things that would disturb that space, then you're much more likely, assuming you have an intention to appreciate that space or explore that space. Penny, my stuff creates space. Like without fail, I guarantee you, anybody listening to this, I absolutely will guarantee you that if you implement any version of the methodology I uncovered and packaged together in the Getting Things Done methodology, you will create more space. How you use that is totally unique to you. You may use that to be more creative or be more strategic or just be more loving and present with whatever you're doing and be able to watch your girl play soccer without being on your iPhone. Oh my God, I've had testimonials from parents that said that was transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a proven system, and you've got a cult-like following of people, and I think it's because of the results that they're getting. Right? They want to share it, and they're dedicated.
Yeah. So, well, it works.
It does. It works. And I want to talk a little bit more about the system to give people some insights. They can read your book, but I want them to hear some things from you.
Sure.
But I want to ask, do you ever get overwhelmed, or are you always mind like water?
Oh no, I'm overwhelmed. I fall off this wagon daily. If you don't, you're probably not playing a big enough game. So it's not about always being in some sartorial on the mountaintop. Right. There's nothing wrong with that, but the whole idea is once you fall off the surfboard, you need an ankle tether to get you back on the board. Totally. So what I discovered is, and actually it's your creativity and your aspirations and your motivation that actually throw you out of your own comfort zone and throw you out of control. You just don't want to stay there, right? You have some new vision, set some new goals, have anything that's new that comes up in your life you need to deal with or you want to deal with or some new opportunity. You're going to have to undo all your previous stuff and recalibrate and refocus so you feel comfortable about how you're now, in the driver's seat about the new game. And so you're always kind of, in a sense, it's like a bicycle. If you get on a bicycle and try to ride it and stay, just there, you're going to fall off. That doesn't work. You're going to constantly be off and constantly course correcting. So that's what this methodology is really about. It's about how do you keep course correcting? Once you notice something that has your attention, that creates a stress. So how quickly can you decide what's got your attention? What do you need to do about it, if anything? How do you park, if you can't finish that and handle it right then, how do you park reminders about what you need to do about it in some trusted place? And that's really how you stay clear, but you're not clear all the time. You wouldn't want to be.
I just wanted to ask, because, people ask me all the time, I wrote the book, The Productivity Zone, and how to get quicker in it when you get out of it. And people are like, oh, you must be always on time and always perfect. And I'm like, oh my God, no, So I wanted to hear from you. You've been doing this for, so many years. We won't name how many,
36.
So that 36, so that people appreciate that this is not about being perfect or perfection. As you said, it's about understanding how to quickly course correct.
Sure.
So I think that's really important.
Yeah. It's like, if you like to cook, no meal is ever totally perfect, especially if you're like most women I ever hung out with. They always trying something new, especially when friends and guests are coming over. They always cook something they never cooked before. Then I always wondered, why is that? Why do they do that? Shouldn't you cook the thing you're going to do perfectly? Like, no. We got to try this. We got to try this. So there's this constant.
Yeah, the reason that they don't, right? Or I can imagine. I mean, I don't think I would do that, but I did do that once. I tried to make creme brulee, and that was a total disaster. But I think it's because, like you said, around other things, is we want to stretch ourselves out of our comfort zone. So we want to please somebody, and we kind of are bored with the same things that we make, right? And that's the same in other things that we do in our lives. As we get to a point where we've done that, we want to do something bigger. We want to add more value. We want to,
sure.
Contribute.
So you throw your, so the point is, it's like, yeah. So it wasn't quite perfect, but you course correct. So, okay. So next time I'm going to add a little more pepper, or next time I'm not going to add so much pepper, or next time I'm going to saute this a little earlier, oh my God, cooking is like infinite in terms of how good you can get at it. But that's pretty much, I make the point that this whole getting things done methodology, in terms of staying on top of your world, is a lifelong lifestyle art and craft. It's not a one-time kind of time management tips and tricks. Yeah, there are a lot of tips and tricks here, that emerged in the process of me uncovering this. But it's mostly, can you live your life in such a way that no matter what happens to you, you can get back on course and stay focused, and grab the things that suddenly have your attention and know how to then process them so that they're not spinning around in your brain at 3 o'clock in the morning.
I have a lot of people who, and I have my techniques, but what do you say when people say, it just, everything is urgent, so it's really hard for me to prioritize. I've got this list, but everything is top on my list. How do you deal with that?
Well, the fact that they even stopped to ask you that question means that was the most important thing, and they put everything else to bed. You can only do one thing at a time, so your glass is either half empty or half full, right? I'm really I really like what I chose to do right now. But the main problem is most people are not feeling appropriately engaged with all those other things, and so they keep encroaching on them, and they're trying to use their head as their office, and your head's a crappy office. And most people are trying to use their head to remember, remind, prioritize, manage relationships between all of those gazillions of commitments most people have made that they're not aware of. And I've spent literally tens of thousands of hours one-on-one with some of the best, brightest, and busiest people on the planet, getting them to unload stuff out of their head. And it is huge for anybody.
So that's the thing, is it's getting it right. And that's, I know the basis of capture it, get it out of your head to free your headspace. And then, when you get to some of the steps, then you're clarifying, you're organizing them. And then what does somebody do? Is the organization the priority, or how do they then decide what's the very best next thing to do?
Well, if you wanted to, let's skip up to the top. How do they know why they're on the planet? What's their purpose as a human being, as an entity here that's incarnated onto this world? If they know that, then ask themselves which email to write first. Or should you clean your toilet right now? Or do you want to cook spaghetti right now? Do you need to take a nap right now? Or do you need to spend time with your girl right now? So, I've identified the 6 horizons we have commitments. Why are you on the planet, and what are major important to you? That's horizon 5. And then horizon 4 would be, what's your vision of a successful life of implementing that? That's horizon 3 would be, what are the things you need to accomplish over the next 3 to 24 months? Horizon 2 would be, what are all the things you need to maintain, like your health and your vitality and your relationships and your finances and yada yada. Horizon 2. Horizon 1 would be, what are all the projects you got about all that stuff? I need tires on my car. We need to handle the next vacation. I got to get my kids into the school for the next school year.
Yeah. Why our head's gonna blow up?
Yeah,
and so to keep up here.
So don't keep it up there.
Exactly.
That's the point. Is you need to get all that out of your head so that you can see it from a larger perspective. So most people are letting their minds run them. You've heard of emotional intelligence. Well, this is mental intelligence. Don't let your mind run you. If you ever changed your mind, who did that? So that's who I'm talking to. It's the part of us that has a mind, and you use your mind for very appropriate things, like you use your emotions for very appropriate things. But that's not who you are. So this really gets you back in the driver's seat to get more in control of all of those things that have engaged these various parts of yourself, and to be able to identify, what are they? What are all the commitments I've got about mom and her birthday? What are the things I need to do about the next vacation? What are the things I need to do about potentially changing my career? Should we get a divorce or not? Those are the things that you need to get out of your head and identify those, and then start to engage with those appropriately. Called, what's the desired outcome? And then what's the next step? See, getting things done, the two keys are, what does done mean and what does doing look like? That's all you really need to answer. What does done mean about mom and birthday? What does done mean about looking into whether divorce or not? What does done mean? You're done doesn't mean that you are going to get divorced. It just means you need to put that issue to bed.
Absolutely.
Either decide to or not to, or park it for another year to think about it. Again, whatever the heck you do to get engaged appropriately with whatever this commitment, this bell ringing inside of you. And I just identified the algorithm that you need to apply to be able to get those things off your mind without having them finished.
That's awesome. I think a structured approach is absolutely key, in helping people to make it simple, right? When there's a structured approach, it helps them to follow it. And you also make it very easy and clear for somebody to follow. I think that's why there's such a huge following behind that.
Yeah, it's simple stuff, but you're not born doing it. You actually have to learn it, and it's a cognitive muscle to train. But what do I need to do about this email? Everybody's got ugly emails. You open it and go, oh, shit, God. What do I do with this?
Too many, too
Jesus,
ugly.
What do I do with this? Oh, I don't know. So what do you need to answer? Ask and answer. What's the outcome here? What's the next step you need to take, to get clarity on it? And you can actually train yourself about, how do I approach these things that show up in my world, that yank my chain, that grab my attention? You actually don't need to go very far at all to understand or to see where to apply my methodology. And that is what's got your attention.
Absolutely.
Those people who've been watching or listening to this have had their mind go, I'll bet, somewhere different than what you and I have been talking about. And that's what if I were coaching them, I'd say, where'd your mind go? Why did your mind go to that? Because you're not appropriately engaged with it yet.
Yeah.
I need cat food. I need a life. I need tires. I need a new VP of marketing, whatever the hell it is. Whatever grabbed your attention about any of those kind of things, that's what you need to start to identify. And so I just understood the necessity to identify what's got your attention. If you want to clear your head, you better clear it from whatever's got your head unclear.
Exactly.
Why is cat food on your mind? Doesn't mean you have to go buy cat food. It just means you need to better write cat food on a post-it on the fridge that whoever goes to the store buys cat food, right? Otherwise, it'll wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh God, I need cat food.
Exactly. It's so important. I mean, you use a lot of computer references, and I've used that in the past too, that each task and each thing, it takes up energy and it runs in the background until you're able to, write it down. So it used to be, people don't recognize that anymore because the computers are so different now. But when I was younger, you'd have a certain number of windows open, and then it would use up the entire capacity of the computer, and then you could no longer work on the current application. And I think that's a great analogy, and I've heard you use it. And actually, you have a number of great analogies for us to really get it in a simple way. And what I find really sad is that, we're grown adults. So I am so excited because we don't have these skill sets. We're just, a lot of us are getting them a lot later in life. So the fact that you're bringing out a teen program that's going to address this at the core of when they're starting their habits and behaviors around studying, around managing different tasks before they get, before they start piling more and more on. I think that's fantastic. And I'd love to hear, a couple words about what's special about the Getting Things Done for the teens.
Yeah, it's actually out now in the US anyway, and in the UK and in the Netherlands. The Dutch version's out, just came out yesterday. So
congratulations.
Getting Things Done for Teens is out. It's actually the same methodology, exactly. It's just using examples and a little easier to engage with it, with some cartoons and some characters in there built in to help explain what this is about. And it took a long time for me to get to the place where we figured we could write the book for teens. We've known from the very beginning, I've been doing this work for 35 years, coaching and in the training world. And, people would go through this, my training or my coaching, and they go, oh my God, I wish I'd have learned this when I was 12.
Totally.
Or my God, I've got kids that got to know this. How do we get it to them? And I don't have kids. So I didn't really have a very good base to come from about how to frame this methodology, for a younger age group. And also, it took me 20 years to figure out what I'd figured out to begin with. And then I wrote the book, Getting Things Done, but it was really targeted for the fast track professionals out there in the world. In the 90s and the early 2000s, when the book came out, the first edition of Getting Things Done came out, it was really targeted for the folks, that were on this tsunami of email coming at them and the whole overwhelming world. And, my business was basically in training and coaching in the corporate world. So I didn't know really how to address the younger set, with this. And Franklin Covey had done a pretty good job where they did the 7 Habits for Teen, and that was pretty successful out there, still is out there for that. So we said, well, is there another version of this I could do? And I'd looked around and I didn't know how to address the education market with it or to address that thing. And then I'll try to make a very long story very short. Met a guy, senior, manager at General Electric Healthcare in Vermont. And he had come across my stuff and was a huge champion of it and was using it inside of GE with all of his teams, et cetera. And then he had very young kids at that time. And he said, let me frame this for my kids. So he started to develop techniques for his kids, and he started to blog about that. I went, wow, that's like super way cool. So Mike and I wound up connecting with each other. He became the president of my company, for 5 years. And so Mike came on board and I said, well, if there were somebody who could, add some great material and potentially be an author of the book. And so then we ran across a guy, not, like 3 or 4 years ago, a public school teacher in the Minneapolis school system, who he had come across GTD, turned him on, changed his life. And he said, God, I can't help holding this back from my 9, 10, and 11-year-olds that I'm teaching. And so he started to frame I framed Getting Things Done for kids in that way. And so, and he did that quite successfully. So those two guys are the co-authors of the book. They really did the heavy lifting of how do I take the David Allen methodology or the GTD methodology, and how do we frame this for examples? So a very simple example would be, come on, when you or an executive or anybody comes home, you've collected business cards, receipts, meeting notes from the board meeting, whatever. Where are they? They're in your briefcase. They're in your pockets. They're somewhere. So you need to empty those. Well, a 9-year-old just needs to empty his or her pack, right? Same thing. I mean, how many parents listening to this right now have had your kids show up with something that you should have signed 2 weeks ago because it was stuffed in a pocket of their pack that they didn't unload? So the necessity to unload their pack on a consistent basis regularly, not miss anything that they've collected out there, is exactly the same principle of an executive that needs to empty their briefcase with their board meeting notes. Same thing, just different content for sure.
Right, makes sense. And then they're relatable examples. So what I'm hearing you say is that you're getting into the school systems as well. Is that right?
Well, we'd like to. We partnered with Vital Smarts in the U.S. as our exclusive distributor of Getting Things Done training in the U.S. And they're very interested in the education market. And I think the key is to reach teachers and administrators with this methodology. Once they get it, they're not going to help but be able to then transfer it to the kids. If you get the kids to get this and the teachers don't, they're not going to be able to support these new behaviors for the kid.
Absolutely.
So anyway, so yes, stuff is in the works, is in process. But Getting Things Done for Teens is available on Amazon, any place you buy books. So if you have a teen or know people who have teens, it's actually written equally for caring adults as well as for the teens. So, this is for teachers, counselors, parents, ministers, anybody that's working with teens or young people. They say, God, these guys have to, because look, kids, once they leave high school, mom disappears as a trusted system, right? They actually have to manage themselves. So how much have they learned? Yes, along the way, they had to be fed, then they had to feed themselves. They had to, they had to have their homework done for them, then they had to do it themselves. They had to have mom make the Halloween costume, then they have to make it themselves. So at some point, so it's a graduation of kids, taking on the ability to be able to manage themselves. There's just been a big gap between, their kind of world they're living in and the world they're walking into once they leave the school system.
Absolutely.
Especially these days. I just met a woman not long ago whose son is 11 years old, and she looked at his phone. He has 500 WhatsApp messages on his phone.
Wow.
500, 11 years old.
Wow.
Now she said he's classy enough to go, I don't pay attention. I got to do my homework before I go play in any of that.
Right.
So he was mature enough to be able to not have that distract him, but come on. That's pretty mature.
Absolutely. It's a huge issue. And I actually believe that there, could be a connection to, suicide rates have been going up sky high with teens, and the pressure that's on them, and the fact that they are overwhelmed and they don't have the skill set because they're not teaching at school about how to deal with this. So I think this could, like you said, you've met a lot of people who have come to you and said that it's changed their lives. I guarantee you that this is going to change the lives for a lot of teens, and that's got to be super exciting for you.
Yeah, it's great. And by the way, we just had dinner with a couple of friends here in the Netherlands 2 nights ago, and the wife in the family, the Getting Things Done book itself is pretty thick. It's a whole manual about everything I gleaned from my 30 years of experience. I just wanted to park in the Bible and get it in there. And it's pretty daunting for people if you're not familiar with it to look at it. So she said, I want to read the Getting Things Done for Teens version.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Like lower barrier of entry, to be able to get into, because it's got cartoons and it's easier to play. It's all the same stuff. So
right.
There's no denigration of the methodology for kids.
Right.
It's exactly the same methodology, right? So there's no lesser about it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing that. We're coming to the end of our session together. Is there, anything else that you want to share with the audience that you think is really important for them to know, other than to go out and buy, not just Getting Things Done, but really, all your books have such incredible insight and wisdom in them that they should really get the set?
Yeah. Well, I'll give everybody the 2-minute version that if you really get it, you don't need to buy any of the books. Ready? Hang on.
Hold on. All right.
Anything potentially meaningful to you about what you might need to make a decision or take an action, or anything at all that might be potentially meaningful to you needs to be captured in some external bucket that you trust you will get to sooner than later. Step 2, you need to make sure you pick up whatever you've captured in that bucket and decide exactly what it means, whether it's actionable or not. And if it is, what outcome are you after? What's the next action you need to take? Once you make those decisions, you need to, step 3, park those in some organizational system you trust, that you'll be reminded of the errands you need to run, the things you need to talk to your life partner about, the stuff you need to do at your computer, the phone calls you need to make, et cetera. And you'll see reminders of all those activities and actions that you've decided you need to take at the appropriate time when you can actually take that action. And you keep this whole external system reviewed on some consistent basis and current, so that you trust that your brain doesn't have to remember or remind anymore. It just needs to know where to look. And then it can then make intuitive choices about what to do. So you feel then comfortable and confident that whatever you're doing is exactly what you need to be doing. That's it.
That's it. Well, that's great. And I wish that it could just go from your mouth into our brains and then be fixated there. But
well, in the brain is easy. Your behavior is a whole nother trip.
Right. Exactly. So thank you so much for being here. Before we do sign off, is there any, when you talked about like an organizational system for reminders, and ways to review that, is there any apps or tools that you've used that you think are really great for supporting your system?
I've used a bunch. all you need is a list manager. I've done everything from the early days in the 1981, 82, when I uncovered this methodology, file folders with pieces of paper inside them. Use that. That was great.
Right.
And then when personal planners showed up in the mid to late 80s, I used one of those for 20 years, because all you need is a page that has a list of phone calls to make. So it was just a way to externalize that in a loose leaf notebook. And that works fine. And now, since my book came out, there are over 300 apps that have been built around my methodology purporting to support that. And they're all just list, man. All you need is a list.
And they're all good, right? I mean, at the end of the day, here's what I think.
They're good if you'll use them.
If you use them, right, consistently. Yeah. They'll all work, but it's like you said, it comes back to our behavior.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, David, thank you so much for being here. And, for those of you who are listening online, of course, you can go to David's website. David, what's your website again?
Gettingthingsdone.com.
Gettingthingsdone.com. They'll give you a lot of the resources. You can also go there, I guess, to get links to getting the book. And, for those of you listening, this is an important and yet simple thing that we're really getting at to make yourself more productive, to get that clarity in your head, and for you to take back time, because you're taking back control, you're taking back creativity, and the access to really get clarity on the things that are most important to you and make those things happen. So there we are. There we have it for today. Thanks again, David.
My pleasure, Penny. Thanks.
You're listening to Penny Zenker, and this is Take Back Time. We'll see you in the next episode.